Good evening. Thanks for joining us on Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty ended a two-week high led by recovery in IT stocks. The Nifty reclaims 24,800. The rupee gains some strength against the dollar in volatile trade. Gold prices hitting a record high in India and across the world. Weak jobs report in the US raises expectations of a rate cut by the Federal Reserve next week. China adds to its gold reserves, further bolstering prices. President Trump's trade advisor Peter Navarro equates the BRICS to vampires, says the grouping of developing nations cannot stay together. Silence in both Washington and New Delhi as 3 days pass after Prime Minister Modi fully reciprocated positive statements from President Trump on the special relationship with India. Infosys is the top gain on the Nifty 50 index after the company says it will consider a share buyback proposal on Thursday. It will be Infosys' first buyback in 3 years and the fifth since its listing in 1993. The move ignites expectations of buybacks from other IT companies. The Securities Appellate Tribunal sends a notice to SEBI after JaneStreet challenges the charge of market manipulation. The US quant trading firm claims SEBI's own internal report gave it a clean sheet. JaneStreet has paid 4,800 crore rupees in penalty imposed by SEBI alleging market manipulation in some bank Nifty trades. The Sona First family feud gets murkier. Late Sunjay Kapoor and actor KarismaKapoor's children moved the Delhi High Court, accused Sunjay's wife Priya Kapoor of forging his will to try and gain total control of his assets worth 30,000 crores. Karishma and Sunjay were married for 13 years and have a daughter and a son together. The children are seeking a 20% share each in their father's assets. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Oli resigns after violent protests over corruption and social media ban leave 19 people dead. Oli says he's resigning to help resolve issues politically. All flights cancelled to Kathmandu airport. India's External Affairs Ministry appeals for calm, issues a travel advisory to Indian nationals. Parliamentarians to vote to elect India's next Vice President. NDA candidate C.P. Radhakrishnan has the edge ahead of opposition's B. Sudarshan Reddy, Naveen Patnaik's Biju Janata Dal, K. Chandrasekhar Rao's BRS and Sukhbir Badal's Shiromani Akali Dal abstained from voting. Jagan Mohan Reddy's YSRCP decides to support the NDA candidate. Media mogul Rupert Murdoch finalizes a family settlement in succession. The eldest son, Lachlan Murdoch, cements control over the media empire that includes Fox News and Wall Street Journal. 3 other Murdoch siblings will sell their personal holdings within 6 months. Well, let's start with the day's market action. As always, the market's ending at a two-week high led by IT stocks today. The Nifty ended above 24,800. The Sensex rose over 300 points. The IT index gained nearly 3% today, and you see that playing out 945 points higher there on the IT index. Meanwhile, the rupee gained some strength against the dollar today. The rupee was below the 88 mark in intraday trade, but it ended the day above that level after gaining over 16 paise against the dollar, 88.10. That's where the dollar rupee closed for the day. But there is no stopping the yellow metal. Gold prices hitting another record high of $3,600 as U.S. labor data buoyed expectations of a Fed rate cut. Gold, silver and platinum have gained between 40 and 55% so far this year, so gold continues to be on a tear. Two mining giants, Anglo American and Teck Resources, have agreed to merge to create a copper producer valued at $53 billion. The combined entity will be among the top 5 copper producers in the world. Anglo American shareholders will own over 62% of the business. Teck Resources will hold more than 37% stake. And the deal comes as miners look to shore up access to copper, which is essential to the renewable energy transition as a core component in wiring used in the booming data center sector. So that's a big global deal there. The Fed cutting rates while the economy is okay is a recipe for a bubble. That's the word coming in from investor Ruchir Sharma. Speaking to CNBC, Sharma added that the Fed has never cut interest rates when the financial condition has been this easy. The Fed is expected to announce its rate decision next week.
In the past, when the Fed has cut interest rates, when the economy has been doing okay, it has usually been a recipe for a bubble. That's what happened in 99, 2000. And some will argue that that's what possibly even happened in 2021. But I think the main issue here is the fact that financial conditions are super easy. The Fed has never cut interest rates when financial conditions have been this easy.
Well, no cut warranted. Donald Trump will have nothing off that. Let's see which way the Fed decides to finally vote. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro is hit out at the BRICS alliance, of which India is also a part yet again. This time, Navarro has compared the BRICS to blood-sucking vampires. In an interview with cable news channel Real America Voice, Navarro said, and I quote, "The bottom line is that none of these countries can survive if they don't sell to the US. And when they sell to the US, their exports, they're like vampires sucking our blood dry with their unfair trade practices. Let's see what happens. But I don't see how the BRICS stay together since historically they all hate each other and kill each other," end of quote. Now, this isn't the first time Navarro trained his guns on the BRICS. He has on previous occasions leveled charges of unfair trade practices and internal divisions, among others. Meanwhile, there is silence in both Washington and New Delhi as 3 days have passed after Prime Minister Modi fully reciprocated positive statements from President Trump on the special relationship with India. We learned from sources that ongoing discussions with US officials exhibited contentions over sectors including dairy, agriculture, fisheries and MSMEs. The government has reiterated that it is open to a fair, equitable and balanced trade deal with reciprocity. Union Cabinet Ministers Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal have said that they believe that the tariff standoff won't necessarily be a long-haul situation. Meanwhile, former Indian ambassador to the US, Nirupama Rao, has said that the recent statements made by the Prime Minister and President Trump are positive but do not convey a reset in ties. Take a look.
There is a package which consists of very many different ways in which we want to help them. So we'll wait for the cabinet to clear it. But there is something coming to help them so that this tirade of the tariff is something which they can face. And also suddenly having to look for newer markets is also a challenge. But we'll have to help them out on that.
So is there a sense in the government that this could be a slightly longer haul?
We hope not, but we really can't leave our exporters high and dry saying it's going to change sooner. We will work with them.
Nirmalaji, will we also continue to buy Russian oil?
Yes, that's been made very plain and simple. Whether it is Russian oil or anything else, it's our decision to buy from the place which suits our needs.
You know, some of the officials of the Trump administration, calling it Modi's war or, a laundromat of Kremlin. I mean, how do you react to this? I mean, are conciliatory noises coming from the other side now?
I think there could be either some misunderstandings or some personal opinions that may be reflected in that. I do not think that deters the US and India from continuing to maintain our strategic alliance and partnership. Our friendship is far stronger than a few comments that may be made by a few people.
You look at the entire world today, there is huge turmoil, there is turbulence, policy decisions are changing overnight. And the process which used to be followed in a multilateral, in a discussion, those kind of processes are today not very visible. So under such circumstances, the stability that India offers, that's huge. That's what is attracting a lot of investors to our shores.
The tone today is better, but it's an opening gambit, not a reset. So if you ask me, are these statements a sign things will improve? I would say they're a de-escalation signal, certainly, and they buy both sides some breathing room. Now, there's the tariff overhang also. The US duties, as we all know, as announced, are at 50% on a wide basket, and no new talks have been announced. So both sides, I believe, needed a political valve while the officials reassess the next steps.
Well, reactions there on where things currently stand between India and the US. And speaking of India and the US, a proposed legislation in the US is causing a stir on Dalal Street, especially for IT companies. Now, here's what this is about. Bernie Moreno, he's a Republican member of the US Senate from Ohio, and he has floated a legislation seeking to impose a 25% tax on outsourcing payments. But this proposed bill does not enjoy bipartisan support, and even other Republican colleagues of Senator Moreno have not openly backed the bill. First, here is what the legislation proposes to do. The senator wants a 25% tax on what he calls outsourcing payments. This is defined as money paid by a U.S. company or taxpayer to a foreign person whose work benefits consumers in America. Now, the bill also prohibits companies from deducting any outsourcing payments. This proposed legislation will need the approval from the House, the Senate, and President Trump, since it involves tax changes. So this is a long way away from being a done deal. Another point to note is that the proposed legislation is akin to a private member's bill. Usually lawmakers cutting across party lines propose a legislation so it carries more weight on the floor of the House and Senate. But in this case, Senator Moreno is not being backed by any Democrat or even his own Republican Party members. Now, who is Senator Bernie Moreno? Well, he is an immigrant himself, born in Colombia. Moreno was a car dealership owner before he became a firebrand Republican. Moreno is also seen as an outsider who's keen on shaking up the Republican establishment. He won the endorsement of President Trump for the Ohio Senate race, which proved pivotal in his victory. But like many Republicans, Moreno opposed Trump in 2016, calling him, and I quote, a lunatic, and I quote again, a maniac. But he has reversed his position since and is now an ardent supporter of the president. Here's Ganesh Natarajan, the former CEO of Zensar Technology, who believes American companies will be firmly opposed to this proposed legislation to tax outsourcing. Take a look.
There have been many attempts in the past to do these outsourcing bills, etc. And what I think Senator Moreno has tried to do is something very similar. But in that sense, I think the first point of resistance will come from American corporates themselves. I mean, every significant corporation in the Fortune 500, and indeed most of the IT CEOs who were at dinner with President Trump the other day, I think they all have huge investments in India, in GCCs, what is Global Competency Centers. There are over 1,600 of them in India. Plus, of course, the fact that a lot of their work is done by Indian companies. So I don't think this is going to happen in a hurry. So I'm pretty sanguine about that.
Well, this is unlikely to go through. That's the view of Indian IT. And as we pointed out, that this is almost like a private member's bill. Long journey to go through, if at all it does go through. But Infosys, the top gainer on the Nifty today. The company will consider a share buyback when the board meets on Thursday. Rima standing by with the details. Rima, buyback on the cards for Infosys.
Thanks so much for that. So IT making up for lost ground, lost time. As you said, it was predominantly a drag. Even after the up move today, Infosys is down 20% on a year-to-date basis. But of course, this impending buyback announcement, 11th of September is when the board meets, has gotten the stock and the industry very excited. This will be the company's fifth buyback since 1993. Now, the big question is, how much will the company buy back? Well, estimates vary from about 10 to 14,000 crore rupees. That's the Morgan Stanley estimate. And typically, the buybacks happen at about an 18 to 25% premium. And just going by the last few, four buybacks, the company's historically bought back about 1.5% to 2%. So again, this time, Morgan Stanley says they should buy back 1.3 to 2%. But a buyback announcement signals confidence from the promoters about the value of the stock. It acts as a cushion. From the buyback announcement till the time it gets completed, earnings will come out. God forbid the earnings are disappointing, then at least there is that buyback support which comes in for the price. But the rest of the IT pack is also excited because now after Wipro, the street is hopeful that maybe TCS and Wipro also come out with their buyback announcement because the 1 year cool off which you need between two successive buybacks has come to an end. Both of them completed their buyback in 2023, so they're eligible for a buyback. HCL Tech and Tech Mahindra have been very, very irregular with their buybacks, unlike some of the other larger players which have been very regular. Back to you.
Well, we will be tracking that closely. Rima, many thanks for joining us. On to a CNBC Awaaz exclusive. Japan's finance giant Sumitomo Mitsui is likely to sell its entire stake in Kotak Mahindra Bank via block deal. Sources say the banking firm plans to offload 1.6% stake worth over 6,000 crore rupees. The company is likely to deploy the funds for its Yes Bank acquisition, so exiting Kotak Mahindra Bank and likely to pick up Yes Bank. Now, several brokerages have waved a big thumbs up to India's automobile sector after the recent GST cuts. Morgan Stanley believes the tax cuts will lead to a new auto upcycle. Sudarshan here with the details. Sudarshan, big call there for the auto sector.
Will the GST rate cut boost consumption? The answer from Finance Minister is 100%. And one of the many sectors that is expected to benefit from this is the auto, which has been battling a major slowdown for now more than a year. And this tax relief has come as a much-needed catalyst. Brokerage house Morgan Stanley sees this development as the beginning of a new auto upcycle. It points out that only 13% of Indian households currently own passenger vehicles, while 73% own two-wheelers. For passenger vehicles, first-time buyers are expected to drive demand, while two-wheelers, it will likely come from replacement. Reflecting this optimism, Morgan Stanley has raised its growth forecast, now expecting 10% growth in passenger vehicles and 8% in two-wheelers in FY27. According to Morgan Stanley, there are three major tailwinds that will support the sector. First, GST cuts, which can lower prices to a magnitude never seen before. Second, monetary easing, which will improve credit availability. And third, the implementation of the 8th pay commission, which is likely to boost disposable income. Within the auto pack, Morgan Stanley prefers passenger vehicles, expecting them to surprise more on the upside, as this segment is currently in a down cycle, unlike two-wheelers, which are in a mid-cycle. It also notes that while auto stocks have moved ahead of their 10-year median levels in absolute terms, relative to the Nifty, they remain below their 10-year median valuations. In terms of the top picks, Maruti, Mahindra & Mahindra, TVS Motor, Hyundai and Ashok Leyland top the list, and it has also upgraded Hero MotoCorp and Eicher Motors, expecting them to benefit from the two-wheeler recovery. Though it cautions that valuations look stressed and margin upside is limited for both the names. Conversely, it has downgraded Bajaj Auto to underweight, citing lower exposure to domestic auto demand recovery. So while sentiment has clearly turned positive post-GST rate cut, but the real test of demand pickup will be seen only during the festive season.
Well, top gear there for the auto sector. So many thanks for joining us. We'll take a break, but up next, Nepal's Prime Minister KP Oli resigns after violent protests over corruption and social media ban leave 19 people dead. That and more when we return. The Securities Appellate Tribunal heard U.S. trading firm JaneStreet's plea challenging SEBI's ban order. Now, JaneStreet argued that SEBI ignored its own internal surveillance department report and an NSE report. This is what JaneStreet has told the S.A.T. It claimed that both the reports gave the firm a clean chit. However, SEBI termed the plea a fishing expedition, stating that it has already shared 10 GB of data but cannot disclose more as the probe is still underway. The matter will now be taken up on the 18th of November. News coming in, Vodafone Idea has challenged the government's computation of the AGR before the Supreme Court. Once again, the company has filed a fresh petition before the Apex Court. Previous petitions from the company, including a curative petition, have been dismissed by the top court. So it remains to be seen if the Supreme Court will admit Vodafone Idea's fresh petition on AGR, whether this will be entertained at all or not. Remember, as we pointed out, even the curative petition was rejected. Now, the Sona first family feud gets murkier. Late Sunjay Kapoor and actor KarismaKapoor's children have moved the Delhi High Court. They accuse Sanjay's wife Priya Kapoor of forging his will to try and gain total control of his assets worth 30,000 crores. Ashmit joins us now to take us through the details of the plea filed by KarismaKapoor's and Sanjay Kapoor's children in this matter. Ashmit.
Well, the issue of inheritance of assets left behind by Sanjay Kapoor gets murkier still. We're given to understand that Sanjay Kapoor was married to Bollywood actor KarismaKapoor. They were married for a period of 13 years. They have two children, one daughter, one son, aged 20 and 15 years respectively. It's these children who've moved to Delhi High Court in this petition, and there are four key takeaways. Number one, these petitions, the two children are claiming their status as Class 1 heirs, and by virtue of being Class 1 heirs, each of them is claiming an entitlement to 1/5 of the total personal assets of Sanjay Kapoor. That's one. The second is a will that is being cited by Priya Kapoor. The petition makes several references to this will, which is being claimed by Priya Kapoor. The petitions claim that this will is being used to deny the children of Sanjay Kapoor and Karisma Kapoor their entitlements to the assets. Also going on to say that this will is forged, that despite repeated requests, Priya Kapoor is not sharing any details or a copy of the will, and therefore it raises suspicions about the authenticity of the will itself. That's number two. Number three is that this petition is essentially seeking for an injunction that would restrain the likes of Priya Kapoor, the likes of Rani Kapoor, from transferring or selling or alienating any of the assets of Sunjay Kapoor. Those assets are to be preserved. That's one, the third direction that this petition seeks. And finally, this petition also seeking clarity on the various assets that are available in the name of Sunjay Kapoor, his personal assets, details being sought. This petition has just been filed. We're given to understand that the lawyers for the children of Sunjay Kapoor and Karisma Kapoor are seeking for an urgent hearing tomorrow before the Delhi High Court.
Well, many thanks. This is now becoming a two-front battle. Remember, Sunjay Kapoor's sister and mother have already been out in the public challenging the current state of affairs. And now you have Karisma Kapoor's children moving the Delhi High Court in this matter. Nepal on the boil. Prime Minister KP Oli has resigned after violent protests over corruption and social media ban, which has left 19 people dead. Oli says he's resigning to help resolve issues politically. Archana Solanki joins us now to decode the massive upheaval in Nepal. This is not just about the social media ban. This is also a protest against corruption, Archana. And of course, the protests there continue, now leading to Oli's resignation. We don't know what the status is in terms of what happens to his government at this point in time. Take us through what has led to these happenings.
Well, Shireen, Gen Z has taken over the streets of Nepal. Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli resigned this afternoon after 2 days of violent anti-corruption protests that killed 19 people and injured over 400. Now, it has been named the Gen Z Revolution because of the young participants. Hashtag Nepo Kids is trending across the country. As we speak, the situation is quite tense. Protesters defied a curfew and stormed the residence of the Prime Minister and vandalized it. Protesters also set on fire the office of the country's largest party, Nepali Congress, and residences of several prominent politicians, including the President. They also breached the parliament. All flights at Tribhuvan International Airport have been cancelled. Coming to your question, what led to this? Why is Nepal on the boil? The main reason is corruption, and the immediate trigger was the social media ban. Now, at the heart of this is the movement that's called Nepo Kid campaign. It's a trend that targeted the children of the wealthy and influential politicians. It started before these deadly demonstrations. Now, the campaign has put the spotlight on the children of political and powerful people, accusing them of flaunting their lavish lifestyles, foreign education, luxury cars, exotic holidays, all allegedly funded by corruption. Now, many social media users posted TikTok videos of politicians' children living a better, luxurious life and compared it with that of an ordinary Nepalese. Now, the protesters had one demand: the resignation of Prime Minister KP Oli, whom they blame for growing corruption, worsening economic conditions and the misuse of power. Reason number two, which was the immediate trigger. Before that, let's also understand that the politicians there did not escape the protesters' wrath. Now, what we can see is that there's a purported video of Nepalese finance minister being chased away on a road and thrashed by demonstrators. Now, we at CNBC cannot independently verify the authenticity of the video. And as I said, that the main reason, another trigger for this was the social media ban that was imposed on September 4th. Why was it important? Because Nepal has one of South Asia's highest rates of social media users per capita. Now, the ban on prominent apps like Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, Instagram and Snapchat affected many people who rely on these apps, A, for their small businesses, B, to criticize the government, and C, to connect with friends. Now, this ban was lifted late last night, and as per the government, the reason was that these platforms did not comply with the registration rules of the country. Now, despite police crackdowns and PM's resignations, protesters are still on the streets. This is the first time the youngest citizens, the Gen Z, have staged a movement of their own. Not to mention, there was extensive participation from schools and colleges, and some students were also seen in their uniforms. Back to you.
Archana Solanki, many thanks for joining us. That is the latest in a developing situation in Nepal. The Prime Minister has resigned. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. Stay tuned. We're back in a moment with more.